Good day, I am Amika Rizalte, and today I will be discussing to you the next topic from our group, which is Cubism and Futurism. Let us first tackle about Cubism. Before we start discussing about Cubism, let me give you an interesting quote from Pablo Picasso, which says, "If I paint a wild horse, you might not see the horse, but surely you will see the wildness." So, as we go further sa discussion natin about Cubism, mas may intindihan nyo kung ano yung ibig niyang sabihin sa quote niya na to about Cubism. So, ayan. So, ngayon, pag-usapan naman natin kung ano ang Cubism. Pero bago yan, alamin natin kung paano at saan nagsimula ang pangalang Cubism. Ang Cubism ay na-derive sa isang comment ng isang critic na si Louis Bussell nung nakita niya yung painting ni George Braque na in-exhibit sa Paris noong 1908. Dito, sinasabi niya, it is reducing everything to geometric outlines to cubes. So, doon nagsimula yung pangalang Cubism. Then next, Cubism was highly influential visual art style that began in France in early 20th century. And yung nag-create nito or yung nag-invent ng art movement na to ay ang dalawang artist na si Pablo Picasso at si George Braque. And sa Cubism din, nire-reject nila yung idea of using perspective to create an art as we seen in nature, but rather than it uses geometrical and two-dimensional. As well as the objects here were broken apart, but still makikita natin kung ano yung image na yon from all sides. The Cubism also introduced collage into painting. Siguro alam niyo naman kung ano ang collage. Ito yung paggamit ng mga newspaper, fabric, then sinastock down siya or ina-arrange siya sa isang flat surface. It's either bond paper or anything na flat. So, ayun. Ngayon, magpunta naman tayo sa founders ng Cubism. Simulan natin kay Pablo Picasso. Sino nga ba si Pablo Picasso? Pablo Picasso was one of the founder of Cubism art movement, and he is considered as the father of Cubism. So, he was born on October 25, 1881 in Malaga, Spain as the son of an art and drawing teacher. So, dito makikita natin na nasa dugo na talaga nila ang pagiging artist. And he is also a Spanish painter, sculptor, printmaker, ceramist, and stage director. So, doon makikita natin yung mga talents niya talaga about arts. Another founder of Cubism is George Braque. So, George Braque uses the synthetic phase of Cubism and began to use more colors to represent objects. So, later on, malalaman natin kung ano nga ba itong synthetic phase na tinutukoy dito na ginamit ni George Braque. And another one, he created Woman Musician in 1917, which is exhibited the geometric planes and strong color of synthetic Cubism. So, ayun nga, yung paggamit ng geometric planes na naka-include nga naman talaga sa Cubism. Alamin naman nga natin kung bakit nga ba nasama si Paul Cézanne sa topic natin na Cubism. Si Paul Cézanne kasi, siya yung kauna-unahan na talaga ng first abstract art movement, siya kasi yung nag-inspire talaga sa dalawang founders natin ng Cubism na si Pablo Picasso at George Braque na i-create tong art movement na to. Kasi kung mapapansin natin, if we compare Fields of Bellevue and the Round Table, makikita natin talaga yung influence na Cézanne kay Braque. Kasi both paintings, pinapakita doon yung breakdown ng objects into geometric shapes and share similar earthy color of scheme. Diba nga, yung sinasabi dito yung breaking down of objects dun sa pinag-usapan natin kung ano yung Cubism. So, doon nagsimula yon kung yung inspiration na yon para mag-create si Pablo Picasso tsaka si George Braque ng art movement, which is Cubism, dahil kay Cézanne. Siya yung nag-inspire sa dalawang artist na yon para i-create yung art movement. Dumako naman tayo ngayon sa two main types of Cubism. Ang una ay yung Analytical Cubism na nagsimula noong 1909 hanggang 1912. Ang pangalawa, Synthetic Cubism na nagsimula noong 1912 hanggang 1914. Simulan na muna natin sa Analytical Cubism. So, Analytical Cubism is the early phase of Cubism na nagsimula noong 1909 to 1912. It is characterized by fragmentary appearance of multiple viewpoints overlapping planes. And in analytical cubism, they uses monochromatic color palette. So, pag sinabi nating monochromatic color, it is the variation of in lightness and saturation of a single color. Like, for example, adding white to red, makaka-create ka ng pink. While adding black naman sa red, makaka-create ka ng maroon. So, ayun, parang single color siya, pero iniiba-iba mo lang yung lightness niya or darkness niya ng color na yun. Pero iisang or single color lang yung ginamit natin. Then, it also includes breaking down an object into parts and reassembling them using geometric shapes. For example, ako yung painting na yun, object ako, tapos i-reassemble niya or i-breakdown niya sa pieces, reassemble niya using yung geometric planes. Pero, makikita mo pa din siya, pag tinitingnan mo siya from all sides, makikita mo pa rin kung ano yung image na create na yon using the geometric planes. So, sa analytical cubist, nag-focus sila sa forms like cylinder, sphere, and the cone to represent the natural world. We have here an example of analytical cubism made by Juan Gris in 1887 to 1927. It is the portrait of Pablo Picasso. So, dito makikita natin yung image ni Pablo Picasso, tapos break down niya into pieces, tapos nire-assemble niya using the geometric shapes. So, ayan yung example nun. Diba? Kung titingnan natin siya in all sides, makikita natin yung kabuuan ng image pa din ni Pablo Picasso. Pero nire-assemble lang siya or pinaghiwa-hiwalay tapos binuo using the geometric shapes. So, let's proceed sa pangalawang type of cubism, which is synthetic cubism. So, synthetic cubism is the later phase of cubism, which started from 1912 to 1914. So, it is characterized by simpler shapes and flattening out the image and sweeping away the last traces of illusion to three-dimensional space. So, three-dimensional, it is by means of occupying space, and it is derived through the dimension of height, width, and depth. And next, this one, as synthetic cubism uses a brighter and bolder color palette, texture, and pattern. Unlike sa analytical cubism, ano lang siya, monochromatic yung color. And the objects here are created were less recognizable. So, unlike sa analytical cubism, break down into pieces man yung image, pero nakikita pa rin natin siya or nare-recognize pa rin natin yung image na yon. While this one, synthetic cubism, it is very much less recognizable. And it uses materials such as newspaper, poster, labels with fragments of painting, drawing, and writing to collage and create an image. So, ayun, kino-collage nila yung mga yon, yung mga nakukuha nilang mga images, mga writings, tapos nagka-create sila doon ng panibagong image, pero less recognizable siya. Later, magpapakita ko sa inyo ng example. And it is less on shading. So, pumunta naman tayo sa famous artists in Cubism and their artworks. So, simulan natin sa father of Cubism, which is Pablo Picasso. And yung artwork niya is yung Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, or The Young Ladies of Avignon, originally titled The Brothel of Avignon. Or, it is a large oil painted in 1907, which portrays 5 nude female prostitutes in brothel on Carrer d'Avignon, a street in Barcelona. Each figure is depicted in a disconcerting confrontational manner, and none is conventionally feminine. So, pupunta naman tayo sa famous artists in Cubism and their artworks. So, simulan natin sa father of Cubism, which is Pablo Picasso. And yung artwork niya is yung Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, or The Young Ladies of Avignon, originally titled The Brothel of Avignon. Or, it is a large oil painted in 1907, which portrays 5 nude female prostitutes in brothel on Carrer d'Avignon, a street in Barcelona. Each figure is depicted in a disconcerting confrontational manner, and none is conventionally feminine. So, sa painting na to ni Pablo Picasso, ginamit niya yung distortion ng female body and geometric forms in an innovative way na nag-challenge nga sa expectation ng painting as he idealized the representation of a female beauty. Ang next artist natin ay si Juan Gris, and yung artwork niya ay yung still life with a guitar. Yung still life with a guitar is the integration of light and shadow. Tapos here, the areas that depict the grapes, table, and carafe suggest three-dimensionality, offering a dynamic between representation and abstraction. The next artist is George Braque, and his artwork is Glass on Table. So, dito sa artwork niya na to, hindi nyo actually talaga ma-recognize kung ano yung image na nandito. But actually, this is a glass and appear on a table. This might be a different perspective that might appear on you, but for Braque, pag yung, binibreak up niya yung familiar items into pieces and reordering them, he think that he could get closer to a true likeness of the object. So, ayun yung pinaniniwalaan niya. The next artist we have is Fernand Léger, and his artwork is The Bridge of the Tugboat. So, dito sa artwork niya na to, makikita talaga natin yung Cubism way of making an art, which is yung paggamit nga ng geometrical shapes nga dito. So, yung mga dimensions, nakikita talaga natin dito sa artwork niya na to. So, yun lang. So, the next artist is Francis Picabia, and his artwork is Amorous Parade or The Love Parade, is the analogies between machines and humans. So, eto, Picabia blended male and female, and where the upper part, the red, might be considered as the female, and the lower part, which is in blue, might be considered as the male. So, dito, the viewer can imagine the sound of hammering and the idea of sonorous sculpture or a musical instrument. Of course, the most famous example of the male and female mechanized forms going through their motions and yet forever separated. Next artist is Jacques Lipchitz, which his artwork is Seated Man with a Guitar. So, dito, he conveys the notion of a performance in which musician and instruments are of equal importance, since yung guitar nga are frequently the features of Cubist paintings and sculptures. So, dito sa sculpture niya na to, makikita natin yung geometrical shapes nga na sinasabi about Cubism. Yung sa sculpture niya na to, makikita natin yung form na yon. Next and last artist to be discussed in Cubism is Jean Metzinger, and his artwork is Woman with a Fan. And here you can see a woman with a fan on his hand, and it is being break down into pieces and reassemble again using geometric shapes into dimensional. What are the subjects used in Cubism art? So, it could be a simple figure subjects, or it could be landscape or townscape. And third, and it is actually the most dominant subject of Cubism art, it is still life, like musical instruments, bottles, glasses, and playing cards. We also have characteristic of Cubism. Let's start off with abstract, broken mirror effect, rearranged, geometric, more than one view, and simplified shapes. So, magpunta muna tayo sa unang characteristic ng Cubism, which is abstract. It says here, abstract does not look like real life, because abstract do not attempt to represent an accurate depiction of a visual reality, just like our example here, the self-portrait by Picasso in 1907. So, makikita nyo talaga na yung image na ginawa niya is sobrang layo sa reality. So, ayun yung difference. Second characteristic is the broken mirror effect. So, dito naman, kitang-kita nyo naman na sa example natin, The first one is House at Lestoch by George Brock, and Portrait of Daniel Henry Kahnweiler by Pablo Picasso. So, makikita nyo yung image na yan, yung sinabi ko nga kanina, yung broken down into pieces. So, ginagamitan siya ng geometrical shape. So, ito yung example na yon, yung broken mirror effect na to. So, yung image na yon, pinaghihiwa-hiwalay siya, binobroken down into pieces, tapos gagamitan ng geometrical shapes para i-rearrange siya. Pero makikita nyo pa rin naman, or na-recognize nyo pa rin naman yung image na create ng artist. The third characteristic of Cubism art is rearrange. So, yung una natin example, we have here, The Acrobat by Pablo Picasso on 1930. And next is The Portrait of Marie-Therese Walter by Pablo Picasso again on 1937. So, nakikita nyo naman siguro sa example, yung tinutukoy natin rearrange dito, yung kagaya na to, yung sa The Acrobat, yung body parts niya kasi, 'di ba? Parang sa iba nalalagay. Kagaya nung sa kamay, parang nakakonect na rin siya sa may paa. So, wala siyang mismong body talaga. Meron lang siyang head, meron lang siyang paa, tapos meron lang din siyang kamay. Characteristic of Cubism art is geometric shapes. We have here two examples. The first one is Soldier at a Game of Chess by Jean Metzinger, and the second one is Jacqueline Rock with Her Hands Crossed by Pablo Picasso on 1954. So, ayun lang, yung paggamit nilang geometric shapes sa pag-create ng art. As simple as that. The last characteristic of Cubism art is more than one view. We have here an example of Nush Award by Pablo Picasso on 1937. So, dito makikita natin, yung sa face pa lang niya, makikita na natin, di ba, yung iba't ibang mga images na pwede nating mapansin sa kanya. May makikita tayong sun, may makikita tayong moon, so, parang may makikita tayong mga puno. Ganon. So, yun yung tinatawag nating more than one view. Sa isang image, iba't ibang mga objects yung nakikita natin sa image na yon, sa isang image pa lang. So, yan. So, now, let's proceed to our next topic, which is Futurism. But before that, I have here a quote from Filippo Tommaso Marinetti, which says, "We say that the world's magnificence has been enriched by a new beauty, the beauty of speed. Time and space died yesterday. We already live in the absolute because we have created eternal, omnipresent speed." So, dito sa quote niya na to, bakit kaya niya sinasabi na the world's magnificence has been enriched by a new beauty? And this is the beauty of speed. So, malalaman natin yan as habang dinadiscuss natin yung topic na Futurism. So, we have to go to the next slide. So, what is Futurism? So, Futurism was an Italian art movement of the early 20th century. So, pag naririnig natin yung salitang Futurism, pumapasok sa isip natin yung mga salitang dynamics, speed, energy, and the power of the machine, and the vitality, change, and restlessness of modern life. So, Futurism also promotes extreme artistic innovation and experimentation from the past, and focus on a new art, technology, and politics. So, yung example ng innovation na to sa pag-create ng art is yung stop time, para maipakita na yung art na yon may motion na nag-occur doon. So, makapapakita ko sa inyo mamaya yung mga example ng mga arts na ginagamitan ng stop time. So, who created Futurism? So, the person who created Futurism is Filippo Tommaso Marinetti. So, he is an Italian poet and is considered as the father of Futurism. So, the experience of the old bicycle versus the modern car inspired him to write his manifesto of Futurism, glorifying the new technology of automobile and the beauty of its speed, power, and movement. So, doon nga sa quote niya na yon, yung sinasabi niyang speed. So, eto, yung experience niya sa old bicycle versus the modern car, yung nag-trigger talaga sa kanya para i-create yung art movement, which is yung Futurism nga. Dahil nga sinasabi niya, the new technology of automobile and the beauty of its speed, power, and movement. So, yun, kaya siya na-inspire na i-create yung art movement na to. So, ito yung Manifesto of Futurism by Filippo Tommaso Marinetti. So, it is a declaration of futurism nga, and it is one of the most important works in futuristic art. So, yung Manifesto of Futurism, it advocates the modernization and cultural rejuvenation of Italy. So, yun yung purpose nung Manifesto of Futurism ni Filippo Tommaso. So, we have here 5 art movements that is actually influenced by Futurism, which is Art Deco, Vorticism, Constructivism, Surrealism, and Dadaism. So let's start with Art Deco. So, Art Deco took its name short for Art Decoratives, from International Exhibition of Modern Decorative and Industrial Arts, held in Paris in 1925. It is a style of visual arts, architecture, and design that first appeared in France just before World War I. So, it has influenced the design of buildings, furniture, jewelry, fashion, cars, movie theaters, trains, ocean liners, and everyday objects such as radios and vacuum cleaners. So, Art Deco represented luxury, glamour, exuberance, and faith in social and technological progress. Next art movement that is influenced by Futurism is Vorticism. So, Vorticism was a London-based modernist art movement formed in 1944 by the writer and artist Wyndham Lewis. So, it was partially inspired by Cubism but in a futuristic approach. So, Vorticist paintings emphasize modern life as an array of bold lines and harsh color drawing, and viewers' eye into the center of the canvas, and Vorticist sculpture created energy and intensity through direct carving. So, ayun, ang Vorticism kasi, partially inspired lang siya ng Cubism, pero yung approach niya, or yung art niya mismo, is inspired, it is actually a futuristic approach. So, ipapakita ko sa inyo yung example ng Vorticism art. So, ito nga yung example ng Vorticism art natin, which is Vorticist Study by Edward Wadsworth on 1914. So, ayan, makikita nyo, diba, ito yung kung paano gumawa ng art sa Cubism nga, Cubism movement. So, ayan. Pero, yung approach niya kasi, it is way more on a futuristic style. So, pero, yung parang forms niya is sa Cubism. Partially Cubist. Kaya, partially Cubism lang kasi, Cubism yung way ng paggawa, pero, yung approach niya or yung image na kinecreate niya is pang futurism. Constructivism. So, Constructivism was an artistic and architectural philosophy that originated in Russia beginning in 1915 by Vladimir Tatlin and Alexander Rodchenko. So, it aims to reflect modern industrial society and urban space. Its influence was widespread with major effect upon architecture, sculpture, graphic design, industrial design, theater, film, dance, fashion, and to some extent, music. So, ito kasing constructivism, mas nagpo-focus siya sa arts na pang mga architectural. So, bibigyan ko kayo ng example dito ng constructivism. So, ito nga yung example natin for constructivism, which is Zhuv Workers Club by Golosov in 1927 to 1929. So, ito ang makikita nyo, more on architectural designs yung focus ng constructivism from the word itself, construct. So, ayun, more on architectural, mga ganun yung focus or yung aim talaga na nare-represent ng constructivism. Next, we have Surrealism. So, Surrealism was a cultural movement which developed in Europe in the aftermath of World War I and was largely influenced by Dadaism. and it is known for its visual artworks and writings and the juxtaposition of distant realities to activate the unconscious mind through the imagery. So this one balances a rational vision of life with one that asserts the power of the unconscious and dreams. So ito yung focus niya, yung parang ito yung mga art na akala natin sa mga panaginip lang natin siya nakikita, pero itinatransform siya sa art para maging mapakita yung reality and yung dream as one sa art na yon. We have here the example for surrealism, which is The Persistence of Memory by Salvador Dali. So, 1912. So, it's actually the influence of scientific advances during Dali's lifetime. So, it's a dreamlike scenery na image na nare-reflect yung Freudian emphasis on the dream landscape. While yung melted watch na nakikita nyo dyan, it actually refers to Einstein's theory of relativity, in which the scientist references the distortion of space and time. So, dito makikita natin nga yung image na yan, para siyang pang-dream, mga nakikita natin sa mga panaginip natin, but actually it is based on reality. Yung mga images na yan, may mga meaning siya sa reality. So yun. So the next art movement that is influenced by Futurism is Dadaism. So Dadaism, or Dada, is an art movement of the European avant-garde in early 20th century. So it is actually developed in reaction to World War, consisted of artists who rejected the logic, reason, and aestheticism of modern capitalist society, instead expressing nonsense, irrationality, and anti-bourgeois protest in their works. So, Dadaist artists expressed their discontent toward violence, war, and nationalism, and maintained political affinities with radical left-wing and far-left politics. Here's an example of Dadaism art, which is a to-the expression by Raoul Haussmann. So, etong art na to, kung makikita nyo talaga, kasi, di ba ang sinasabi nga sa Dadaism, na-create to after nung sa World War. Ito yung parang mga parang way nila para ipakita yung pagiging against nila sa politics or sa nangyayari sa paligid nila. So, ayan yung example na yan. Diyan nila ine-express yun, yung art na yan, yung nag-express on yung feelings nila or yung thoughts nila about sa pagiging against nila sa isang bagay or sa politics nga, for example. So, now mag-proceed naman tayo sa leading artists in Futurism art movement. So, start tayo kay Umberto Boscioni. So, who is Umberto Boscioni? Umberto Boscioni is an influential Italian painter and sculptor. So, he helped shape the revolutionary aesthetic of the Futurism movement as one of its principal figures. So, ito yung mga some of his famous artworks, which is unique forms of continuity, the city rises, dynamism of a cyclist, the charge of lancers, and simultaneous vision. So, dito makikita nyo yung pinakasikat niya na painting, which is the city rises in 1910. So, it is considered as the first painting in Futurism art movement. It resembles a war scene where we can see a large horse races while the workers are struggling to control the horse. So, ini-implies na merong tension between the human and the animal. Tapos, makikita natin medyo blurred yung image kasi pinapakita din dyan sa image na merong rapid motion para mas maging realistic yung dating nung painting na yan. So, ayun yung pinaka leading artist in Futurism is Giacomo Balla, born on July 18, 1887 and died at the age of 86 on March 1, 1958. He is an Italian painter, art teacher, and poet, best known as a key proponent of Futurism. So, his paintings depicted light, movement, and speed. So, unlike other leading futurists, he was not interested in machines or violence, but his works are tending towards the witty and whimsical. So some of his artworks are Dynamism of a Dog on a Leash, Street Light, Girl Running on a Balcony, Speeding Automobile, Flight of the Swallows, and The Hand of a Violinist. So ito yung artwork na kilala talaga, na nakilala talaga, which is Dynamism of a Dog on a Leash. It was actually an experiment art by Giacomo Balla. Then, this artist was inspired actually by chronophotography. It is a vintage technique to show movement in several frames. So, mapapansin nyo, merong fast movement dun sa woman tsaka sa dog. Kaya parang medyo semi-transparent yung image. Kasi meron ngang movement, which is, sinabi nga dito, ang ginagawa niyang paintings, nagde-depict ng light, movement, tsaka speed. So, yun yung pinapakita dito sa famous artwork niya na to, which is Dynamism of a Dog on a Leash. Another leading artist in Futurism is Gino Severini. So, he was born on April 7, 1883 and died at the age of 82 on February 26, 1966. So, he is an Italian painter and the leading member of the Futurist movement. So, during his career, he worked in a variety of media, including mosaic and fresco. So, Severini was less attracted to the subject of machine than this fellow futurist and frequently chose the form of the dancer to express futurist theories of dynamism in art. So, some of his artworks are Sea Dancer, Armored Rain in Action, the Hunting Dancer, and Dancer in Pigalle. So, dito, makikita niyo yung artwork niya, which is Sea Dancer on 1914. So, ayun yung mga ginagawa niya talagang mga artwork, or ito yung pinaka-focus niya talaga, which is yung meron ngang yung subject matter niya is yung dancer to express his futuristic theories of dynamism in art. So, ayan. Next leading artist is Carlo Cara. Born on February 11, 1881 and died at the age of 85 on April 13, 1966. He is an Italian painter and the leading figure of the Futurist movement that flourished in Italy during the beginning of 20th century. He combined the radical painting techniques of Cubism and the dynamism of Futurist ideology. So, some of his artworks are Woman in the Balcony, The Red Horseman, Jolts of a Cab, and Concert Cafe. So, one of his example here is the interventionist demonstration in 1914. So, kung makikita nyo nga, may yung dynamism of futurism ideology, makikita nyo dito, which is yung surrealism, makikita nyo dyan. Tapos, yung Cubism din at the same time. So, yan yung example niya ng artwork from Futurism. The characteristic of Futurism. The Futurists define themselves as anti-romantics kasi yung pag-create nila ng art is naka-based dun sa mood nila tsaka yung sa emotion nila. So, they exalt science and technique kasi meron nga silang parang yung stop motion na kung saan parang kine-create nila yung art na painting na yon, pero parang meron pa ring form of science and technology at the same time. So, but they want them to be poetic and lyric. So, kagaya nung sa surrealism, 'di ba, may mga meaning yung ginagawa nilang art. So, yun lang. Thank you. Po lahat yung topic na pinag-aralan natin today, which is Cubism and Futurism. I hope na may natutunan kayo kahit papano sa discussion for today. So, thank you so much. And God bless us all.